Welcome to the March 19th meeting of the Rotary Club of Gastonia, where our theme this year is... Thank you. Please pass the card buckets and reach extra deep into your pocket today because our speaker is from that Shelby Club. You know, the ones that always beats us in their card donations, so a little extra today would be good. Please turn off your noisemakers, and James Smith will lead us in our song and pledge.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. No, I'm not standing at the bar. We'd like to wait. Let's stand and pull out your hymn books or the closest book you have and turn to number 15. Let's hop on our bicycles indoors because it's a lousy day outdoors, but let's bring a little sunshine as we sing The Bicycle Built for Two. Number 15. Number 15. It's on page 22. But it's number 15. Big number. Upper left hand corner. Jim West. Okay. Wrong number, James. Daisy Bell. Bicycle built for two. Number 15. Attention. Okay. All right. Next to you and say hello. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve Weitzel has our invocation.
Let us give thanks. Thank you for the gathering of your children. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, may we be ever mindful of those in need. Help us to provide food for the hungry. Help us to heal the wounds of hatred with our love. Help us to comfort those in sorrow. Help us to bring peace to those living in areas of unrest. Through our service, to all we thank you for all our gifts. Amen. Amen.
Kathy Young has health and happiness.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, you're supposed to have Stephen Long, but I think I hit the mother load covering for him today. It's going to be a big day. If your wallets are not readily accessible, please adjust for that now. We're going to start with our visiting Rotarians. I believe we only have one as our guest speaker, so I'll hold off until the introduction. Did I miss any visiting Rotarians? Okay. Guest of Rotarians. I'm going to introduce a guest that is not mine first and then let Ellis take over. Very handsome young man came up to the door, and Ella says, "Do you remember this kid?" And Hugh Pham, who was one of my all-time favorite, I have a picture framed in my house, I loved him so. Hugh, if you'll stand up so Dr. Fisher can introduce you. I was his art teacher long ago, and he decided against art and has gone in the direction of medicine, which is something I question, but
Hugh's a very interesting young man who's unbelievably has chosen a career in pediatrics, which is almost has become a female subspecialty. He's a second-year student at Brody School of Medicine at ECU, and he spent some time with us. But I was so shocked to see that my art teacher. So, but anyway, he's glad he had moved to Brody.
I know we have other guests of Rotarians today. Do we want to start up here? Go ahead.
My guest today is Ken Gilbach, one of my long-term good friends. Ken is the owner of Gilbach Designs, which is a company in Charlotte that does business all over the world, designing, building, and installing sets for television stations, stage, museums, trade show exhibits. One of an example of his work locally would be the Billy Graham Museum. If you've been there, you've seen his work. So, Ken
Tim Grooms, you said you had a guest?
I have my guest today, my daughter, Mary Catherine, and I have a few happy dollars too in just a minute, but welcome here to Rotary.
I would like to introduce my friend, the Reverend Dr. John Martin, and she is the chaplain at Government Village.
Any other guests? Okay. Under health concerns, we do have a few things that we want to cover. Vinnie Cherry's uncle Kevin Cherry passed away very unexpectedly. I know many of you were connected to him. His service will be this evening at First ARP at 6 o'clock, a celebration of his life, and we will keep Vinnie and all the Cherries in our prayers. Jim Westmoreland has, I believe, had a couple of back surgeries and is out of surgery today and is doing well, but we'll keep him in our thoughts. Are there any health concerns that I missed? Have some good news. Somebody is very proud of his new grandson. Jim Makinson has met his grandson from China on, I guess, Skype maybe this morning. It is Robert P. Dickinson III. And so they're headed home, so we're all very excited, and Jim has already paid a very nice fine for that to go toward Happy Dollars. Rotarians in the news. Wow. You all have really been knocking it out of the park. We're going to cover some things before we go to the big screen. Martha Burris, the Athena Award. Congratulations. That is well deserved, and you still have to pay a fine. Wait. No. We're saving you up. We're saving you up, not
I
yet.
thought you were going to skip over it.
But I wouldn't forget you, Bill Seaver. No, I'm building up to that.
All right.
Pace yourself. Okay, so we've got a bizarre incident yesterday. Megan Moose, Cindy Moose's daughter, was on the news. I saw her with the police there at Precision Pilates, and then saw her on the news last night. Fortunately, she's fine, but I believe a car drove right into someone was that excited to get to Pilates. Is that the story? There you go. But she's doing well. Megan's fine. And
Everybody was okay.
everybody was able to move quickly because of all their Pilates studies and got out of the way of the car. We also have, I don't know technically how the fine should run when it was such a big color picture on the front page, and then they ran it again the next day in Section B. But John Bridgman, Merriman Castles, everything with the art space is very exciting. So, John. And being the gentleman that you are, since Merriman isn't here, I will assume you want to cover her fines as well on that. And then again, it was twice in full color. That's right. We've got new lease, more money for the hospital. That's always good news. And I see Joe Carpenter, Earl Mathers, Brenda Craig, Kathy Cloninger. So,
Joe, there it is.
I said Joe. Joe Carpenter, there it goes. Okay. I think that the news that we're all most excited about this week has been Dancing with the Stars for the future. That was a huge, huge year this year. And we have many people that we will want to find. In the end, really, even if you attended, I think it's something that you should be paying a fine for. Tim wanted to introduce his daughter a little more fully a moment ago, Mary Catherine Grooms. She is a rock star, a personal hero of mine. That's his gorgeous daughter that looks nothing like him up there on the big screen. Correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, and Tim, you are more than welcome to I believe Mary Catherine single-handedly raised about $66,000, is that correct? Yeah, for the Boys and Girls. 1% fine according to the president, Tim says, sir.
But I want to say something also for Trey. He did a fantastic job the other night and practiced hard, and thanks to all the people that donated to the Boys and Girls. It was a great one. It was a great one.
Yeah, Trey also will need to pay a fine. Martha Burris will need to pay a fine. Allison Cookson, your husband Jim did a phenomenal job of emceeing. Kathy Cloninger, her husband was a judge. Many of you attended, and I know who you are because I saw you there, so don't make me embarrass you by calling you by name. Get up, bring your money. We'll benefit here as well as the Boys and Girls Club. Bring your fines. Bill Seabrook, was there anything that I missed?
No, you did.
Okay.
And there's Megan Moose. Yes, I've got mine right here. I have Cindy, or Trey, or my husband. Okay. All right, that's all we've got. Great program today. Have a good day.
And I'm adding $690 because even though I'm not allowed to put her picture on Facebook yet, I have a second granddaughter, Sullivan Tate Stafford, was born February 23rd.
I did miss one thing. We've got
Okay.
the lampshades sale.
Yes,
And
well-
so that'll be at the back door on the way out.
Cindy is going to have a couple of words about that. Cindy?
It is time to crank up the effort, Rotarians. We've got lots of tickets to sell. Charlie Pinniger and his crew are ready to build book stops. We gotta have the money to do that. Tickets will be for sale after the meeting today. Tickets are on sale at the Hive. We have ticket captains busily working. We need more individuals who will be willing to sell lots of tickets as well. So everybody, please join us. Sell, sell, sell.
Yes, thank you. Will Curran, brief announcement.
Saturday morning, about 9 o'clock out in the garden, we're going to start cleaning up a little bit. We'll have some bigger work days going forward, but if you just be willing to come out, walk around, pick up some trash, and just get things started for this season, we'd love to see you at 9 o'clock Saturday morning at the garden. Thank you.
Very good. Charlie Pinniger.
As you know, last year our club sponsored the the Shepherd's Men that jogged through Gastonia. Once again, this year they're doing it. They're running from New York to Atlanta, which is 911 miles. They'll be running through Gastonia. So on the date They're going to be arriving on the 24th of April and leaving on the 25th. We are responsible for some food that evening, breakfast the next morning, which last year took place at Myers Memorial United Methodist. I imagine it will again this year. And we're also responsible for some lodging for these guys. There's going to be 14 runners and 2 staff in this group. Last year we caught up with them at the Rotary Garden. There was a dinner, breakfast the next day, and Tim Frigley and Sidner Thompson were in charge of this thing last year. Sidner is having some health challenges, as you know. He had some colon cancer. He's going to be going through some chemo, so he may not quite be up to this, and Harry has gracefully stepped in and recruited me along the way to help him. So 2 things to do. Write down the date. If you can make some kind of donation to offset the expenses, that would be great. And if you could fellowship with these guys when they come through town, either go over and have a meal with them for dinner or maybe breakfast the next morning. We'll have more on this later, but the date is the 24th, Friday the 24th they'll be arriving. They'll be leaving Saturday morning the 25th of April.
Thank you, Charlie. I think that is all of our announcements for today, and I'll ask Dick Ford to introduce our program.
Our speaker today is Tom McNichol, a member of the Rotary Club of Shelby. Tom has been a member of Rotary for 12 perfect attendance years and is the past president of his club. In his professional life, Tom is a financial services executive with the MetLife Premier Client Group of the Carolinas. In 2012, Tom discovered 2 huge voids in his life. He had never done any hiking, and he didn't even know where Crowder's Mountain was. So in that year, he traveled to Tanzania along with our own Jay Carpenter, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and in the process raised $125,000 for the district's End Polio Now campaign. Last year, he got the climbing bug again and traveled halfway around the world, this time to Tibet and the Himalayas, to tackle Mount Everest, the Earth's highest mountain. Tom, thanks for all you do for your community and for Rotary, and coming over today to take us on the climb of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here today. Can everyone hear in the back? Is everything okay? Great. A little bit more about my background. Thank you for that great introduction. I live in Shelby. I'm married. I've got an 11-year-old little boy. You mentioned my Rotary experience, and basically how this all transpired was a few years ago at a president-elect meeting. I was president a couple years ago, and they had a meeting that said, we're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I know I got different mountains here. We're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and raise a bunch of money for polio. And I was sitting at that meeting, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. I'm thinking, I thought it was a terrible idea. And I'd never done any climbing, anything in my life. It wasn't interested in it. And by the time I got back to Gastonia heading towards Shelby, I kind of talked myself into it. And I said, I got to do this. So I looked at a lot of different things. My cholesterol was borderline. I needed to lose a couple of pounds. I was about to be president of the club. I thought it would be good. And primarily polio, trying to raise a lot of money for polio. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And I got home and I talked to my wife. And I said, honey, got this crazy thing going on. Can I go? And she said, yeah. And I was thinking she'd say no, so I thought I was off the hook. But then she said yes, and I was like, okay, now I've got to go because I kind of committed, so to speak. So that's kind of how my mountain climbing got started. And then I went to, I bought some boots, I bought a backpack, and then I said, I've got to go climbing somewhere. And I talked to a guy at work, and he said, well, you need to go to Crowder's Mountain. And I said, well, where is that? And I knew it was in Kings Mountain, so I wasn't totally terrible there. I knew it was in Kings Mountain, but I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't know anything about it. So started to hike Crowder's Mountain, etc. And as was mentioned, we raised about $125,000, $130,000 for polio climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in 2012. Got back, Didn't know where my hiking boots were. That was done. I was not a hiker. I just trained for that. Then about a year later, a couple of the Rotarians that went with me, Brian Baker out of the Kings Mountain Club, you may know Brian, and Michael Chang out of the Shelby Club, we kind of talked and said, let's try to do something a little bit different. So we decided on Mount Everest Base Camp. Mount Everest is something I would not want to do. Mount Everest Base Camp was fun, it was awesome, it was incredible. I'll show you a lot of pictures in a moment, but Mount Everest to the top costs probably between $50,000 and $100,000, and it takes about 2 to 3 months, and 1 out of 25 people do not return. They're still there, unfortunately. And I don't have a death wish, so to speak. So we decided to go pretty high, but not quite that high. As far as what's required from a training standpoint, a lot of people did different things. Some people ran, some people jogged, they did treadmills, they lifted weights. What I kind of did is I started doing some hiking, I played basketball, did a little bit of swimming. The main thing that you're trying to do, in my opinion, is get your legs and your hips and your lower back in pretty good shape, and you've got to work on your cardio. So however is good for you to do that worked. And we had a lot of people that did different things for that. Sometimes you had some injuries, like for instance, 10 days before I went to Mount Everest, I had a cortisone shot in my foot because I was having a lot of problems with that. I had MRIs, I had all these tests done because I was having trouble walking, much less hiking. And I'm thinking, how am I going to go to climb Mount Everest Base Camp when I can't walk 2 weeks beforehand? So that worked out very well, but it was something that I had to kind of overcome. And I had to kind of call it quits for about 2 months immediately prior to going. So that was a little bit, it got me a little bit afraid, so to speak. One of the things you cannot train for is the altitude. Mount Mitchell, I think, is around 6,700 feet. We started at like 8,000 or 9,000 feet, so you can't even begin to train for the altitude. My best training, I think, was probably swimming because you get your cardio working very well there, and some basketball. I'm going to go ahead and start the slides right now. Where we started here, there's the U.S. over there, and there is Mount Everest over there on the right side. 9,463 miles. It took about a day to get there, and our flights were pretty quick. We didn't have a lot of downtime in between them. Mount Everest is in a country called Nepal near Kathmandu, and it's between India and China. A lot of people, I didn't know where it was, to be honest with you, so that kind of puts it geographically for you. We flew into Kathmandu, and there's Mount Everest over there to the right. And the trip is about an 85-mile trip. I think we probably hiked closer to 100 miles because you do some other things as well. Mount Everest Base Camp's a little over 17,500 feet. Kalapatar, which is actually where you get your best view of Everest, that we did the next day after Everest Base Camp, that's about 18,500 feet. That was the highest that we went to. Mount Kilimanjaro was actually 19,341, by the way, so we went a little bit lower than that. I'm going to take you through each of these days, but I'm going to do it pretty quickly because to me the pictures of the mountains are the best pictures anyway. First of all, we flew from Kathmandu to Lukla, and then we hiked from Lukla to Phakting. And the pronunciations of these cities or villages, it depended on who you talk to. And the spellings, you could have 6 different spellings for the same village, and everyone said theirs was right. So trying to get the wording, it doesn't even matter, I don't think. But that first hike, actually, we went downhill from 9,400 feet to 8,650. This was the airport. Not quite JFK or Atlanta or Charlotte. That's the airport right there. So that was kind of interesting. Here's our plane. Not exactly a big plane either. That was an interesting ride. I was trying to get a video to have, but I had a lot of technical difficulties. I was trying to get a video to show us taking off actually here. This is a very small plane. You can see the pilot in the very front, and you only have about 6 or 8 rows back, and it's single seat. I love that picture right there. That was all the people here in this plane were the ones that went with us. We had 10 people that went with us. 3 were Rotarians. At Kilimanjaro 2 years back, we had 27 Rotarians. These are just a couple of pictures of the mountains. The Himalayas have some of the highest mountains in the world, or the highest mountains in the world. These are just pictures from the plane out the window right here. And if you ask me what mountain that is, I don't know. There were just beautiful mountains all over the place. This is the airport. Now, right off of here, that's a cliff. That's a cliff. That was probably the scariest part of the trip, to be honest with you, because you kind of were in the clouds and stuff, and they took a turn, and all of a sudden, you're about to land. And you see the edge of the cliff, and you see this little landing strip right here, and you're thinking, okay, he's got to hit that perfectly. And at the end, there's a wall, a straight up wall. So you've got to hit it perfectly and then stop real quick. So that was actually probably the scariest part of the trip, was just trying to get it. That's not a very long runway there. Then there's 4 parking places for the plane. So it's not like it was a major airport there. This is actually the little village where you can buy a bunch of supplies. So if you forgot a lot of things, they've got a lot of shops and things with backpacks and things like that. These are the pictures of yaks. Basically, your transportation there was yak or foot. There's nothing else there. There's no vehicles or anything like that. So what all of us did, part of the trip, so to speak, we could put one bag that weighed about 26 pounds, I think it was. You could pack one of those red bags, not to exceed 26 pounds. They carried that for you, and you carried the rest on your back. And that included sleeping bags, mats if you wanted to have a mat to sleep on, any type of food that you wanted to bring with you as far as snacks, all your different clothes, because sometimes we were in shorts at the beginning, and then you're in close to 0 temperatures at the end. So you had to bring everything, so to speak. Underwear, socks, coats, gloves, everything. This is the start of the trip, kind of going down. There's a lot of different types of scenery here that you'll notice along the way. This is kind of some of the footing. Footing was different as well. Sometimes it was gravel, sometimes it was rock, sometimes it was boulders that you just had to just kind of navigate through. So your ankles actually needed to be in pretty good shape too, because you were going in different directions with your weight. And I used walking poles that were very, very helpful, especially going up and downhill. Downhill using walking poles takes a lot of stress off your knees. This is a few more pictures going downhill. This is a prayer wheel. That's Michael Chang, Shelby Rotary member. This is a prayer wheel. They were all over the place, and you're supposed to use your right hand and slide it and say a prayer, and I don't know all the customs, to be honest with you, but when you saw that, you went and did the custom. That's what they did. This was the first evening. You'll notice me kind of in the middle. You should be able to notice me. That's my beard from Kilimanjaro. I never had a beard in my life until I didn't shave for 12 days for Kilimanjaro, and I've left it since. So I'm the only one that's got a beard there. Everybody else you'll see with later pictures has a lot more beard because you didn't shave along the way. This was at a little bar. They were playing the 60s and 70s music, and it was blaring, and you had a pool table there, and it took us like 25 shots to make the first ball, and we were terrible. But none of us drank any alcohol because alcohol is very, very bad at high altitude. So we had to wait till we were 90% down the mountain before anybody had anything as far as that's concerned. This is before the hard stuff started. Day 2, Phakding to Namche Bazaar. Once again, pronunciations, I don't know. 8,000 to 11,000. We went up about 3,000 feet roughly that day. This is actually where we spent the night at the beginning of that day. The places where we stayed were actually pretty good from the standpoint is you had a place to sleep, you were out of the weather, but there was no heat. So you were bundled up in your heavy clothes, sleeping bag. It was cold at night, but you were out of the wind. You see that ledge at the back of the picture there. If you put a drink there, it would be kind of slushy in the morning or very close to that. It'd be very cold. So you know, a lot of times, especially at the higher altitudes, I slept with a hat on and gloves even, and my sleeping bag, and I had a lot of layers of stuff on. But that's kind of the size of your room. You had a roommate, you hope he didn't snore, and I tell you what, the person on the other side of the wall next to you, those walls were only about that thick. If somebody sneezed, you said bless you, and you heard it very clearly. So if you had anything to hide, you heard anything anybody said. This is just a little child in a tree. I've got some variety of extra pictures in here. This is a waterfall along the way, many hundreds of feet high. This is just a smaller version of that waterfall. And then these are 4 of the girls that went with us, or ladies that went with us. We had 10 people that went. We had 4 men, 6 females. People ranged in age from 22 to 65. We had 4 females in their 20s, a 65-year-old female who was actually the best hiker amongst all of us from the standpoint of she just hikes out west, and she spends weeks at a time out west hiking, and she did very well. All of us actually did very well hiking. We trained in our own way. These were just 4 of them. Just a beautiful picture of the mountain. We just saw these things. You wake up in the morning, you get out and you look at pictures like this. You walk, you just stop, and you just look around and you just start taking pictures. And it was just an incredible experience. I don't know how to say Sagarmatha National Park, but that's the park that Mount Everest is in. And we start there, and they have some warning signs. It says, you might not be able to read this, but it says if you're not feeling well over 2,500 meters, which we started above that, it may be acute mountain sickness. Early symptoms: headache, loss of appetite, dizziness, fatigue on minimal exertion. All that stuff's accurate, it happens. Don't go higher. Worsening symptoms: severe headache, vomiting, walking like a drunk. I cracked up when I read that. Increasing tiredness, shortness of breath at rest. And it says, what do? You descend. Basically, the biggest risk you take going to base camp Mount Everest at roughly 18,000 feet is if you don't listen to your body. I did a lot of research on this before I just said I'm going to do this one, opposite of the Kilimanjaro one, because you hear a lot about Everest, and I wanted to know what I was getting into. Basically, what I read was, if you listen to your body and you listen to the people that are near you, that are watching you, because a lot of times your head just kind of gets a little delirious and you can't make good decisions. But if you let the people around you make that decision for you and tell you when to go down, you've got a very, 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 very high probability of nothing happening to you. But if you don't do that and you go higher when you've got severe altitude sickness, you can die. So I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't think it was a big risk for me, so to speak. This is all 10 of us at the beginning. I shaved my head. I'm third from the left. I shaved my head for that because I didn't want to mess with trying to comb my hair or anything like that. I just shaved it and I was done with it. So that was kind of nice, even though it was a little chilly. These are some of the steps that we went up and down. On day 2, actually, we had some steps that were actually probably the hardest part of the trip. You went step, 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 step. I don't know how many hundreds or maybe thousands of steps there were. It was incredible. We were just so exhausted when we got to the top of that one area. And I'm thinking, this is day 2, we're in trouble. It turns out that was probably about as hard as we had, to be honest with you. This was a bridge. I mentioned a ring here just a few moments before we started, that I'm afraid of heights. Think about that. I've told people that, and they're like, you're nuts, and maybe I am, but with Mount Kilimanjaro, you weren't at the edge of a mountain looking down, so it never was a big deal. Well, I didn't know. I did do some research, but I didn't know we had bridges that were swinging bridges over rivers that we had to cross. This is one of the shorter ones in this picture. So I had some, and I couldn't turn back, so I had to just gather myself and just do it. That was probably the hardest thing, actually. That and those stairs were pretty difficult, trying to go over these bridges, and I'll show you some bigger bridges in a moment. That girl on the right, her ponytail is what I looked at trying to get my fear of going over those bridges. I said, I'm looking at your ponytail, don't stop. So when we got to the real high one, the highest one's about 500 feet from what I'm told, and it was over 400 feet long. I don't like 30 feet. So it was just, it was incredible there. These are just some more of the steps as far as just showing the elevation that we went up and down. One of the things that was interesting is someone mentioned to me, and they before we went, and they said, well, the elevation grade each day was only about like 10% or some small increment as far as number of feet we went up each day. What was not told there was you might go up 1,000 feet and go down 1,800 feet, and go up 1,200 feet, and you might end the day at the same elevation level that you started at and look like you didn't do anything if you just saw it on paper, and you might have killed yourself. So it was very misleading from that standpoint, because you had a lot of things that went straight up and straight down. This is a yak on those bridges. Those suspension bridges are very strong. We only saw one that had tipped over and broken, but I think that was an older one. This is a look. These pictures cannot do justice here. I almost don't even like showing the pictures because they can't do justice. This is a view from the top of the 500-foot bridge. You can't really get a feel for what that is. This is another view. No, actually, this is not the 500 foot. This is probably around 200, I think. This is another view of the river. Basically, what we did for the first several days is you're going up and down along the river. And then you kind of branch off after 4 or 5 days. This is a little village on the edge of the river. Notice all the trees? Later on, you're not going to see any trees because you're getting too high. Later on, there's no trees, so there's no wood, so you can't have fire. So what they do is they collect yak poop, and they flatten it, and they dry it, and they store it, and that's how they heat their homes in the wintertime, believe it or not. I thought that was interesting. There's Brian and myself, and those 2 lines up top there, that's that high bridge. The lower one, I think they said was 300 feet high, the lower one. This is that bridge. They said it was a little over 400 feet long. That's the view of looking down onto that lower bridge, and that looks like it's almost on the ground. And then you have the river there that looked pretty big before, that now just looks like a little stream. This is where my fear, terror, whatever you want to call it, came in. And this is actually another picture looking just straight down. See that little bridge here? That right there is the one that's a couple hundred feet below. This is one of the places we stayed. This was actually pretty nice here. Oh, bathroom facilities. This was one of the better places to go to the bathroom, okay, because it wasn't just a hole in the ground, which was most of the time. If you had not, you notice there's not a place to flush, there's not a seat. All you have is a porcelain thing there. This is how you flushed. You had a bucket with water, and after you were done, you picked up the bucket, filled it with water, and poured it in the bathroom, and poured it in the toilet. Now, this was interesting, and some people, I don't do a lot of traveling abroad, but I realized, see that little basket on the right? That's where you put your toilet paper. You don't put the toilet paper in the toilet. You put it in the trash can. So if you go into the bathroom after a lot of people have used that bathroom, it doesn't really, it's not real, they don't have a lot of air fresheners in there, let me just put it that way. Okay? So, and if you didn't have that, see, that's a pretty big target to hit. The holes in the ground are a lot smaller because all it is kind of like a little bit of concrete and there's a hole in the ground. So you've got to be pretty good at, from an aim standpoint. And one thing you got to be good at too is when you've been hiking all day and your legs are real tired, just kind of squatting down. Your legs are, you got to make sure you hold yourself up. We thought about it after Africa is somebody ought to invent something that like a leather cable from the ceiling so you could hold on to it so you don't fall. So if I had any smarts, I'd patent that. This is a hill that is more like a mountain. It doesn't look that high, but if you look at the people, look how small the people are along. That was a very difficult up and downhill trip. And this was some of the lower altitudes, but this is probably middle, I guess you would say. You notice the vegetation, everything's getting shorter. This is where you can fall off the side if you're not careful. Some more you can fall off the side if you're not careful. That's 3 of us. Mount Everest is in the background. This is actually still day 2. I'm going to flip through some of these slides because this is actually for a longer presentation. Those are the folks that did it in 1953 for the first time. Just some more views. There's a hotel up there, the tallest hotel in the world. We had some lemonade up there. Great views. Interesting. Got horses up there. This is a view down to the village. This was actually our day off. We hiked up from the village up to that and then back down. That was our day off. That didn't count in that 85 miles. Day 3 and 4, 11 to 12,000 feet. These are just more looking at views and some of the hikes. This is a guy that mans the paths and asks for money to keep the boulders off the paths. It's kind of interesting there, where he appealed for money, so everybody gave a few bucks. Some of the things that they grow some lettuce and potatoes and things like that. I'm going to flash through some of these. These aren't quite the higher elevations. See those 2 things in the middle? Those are those bridges that we just looked at a few minutes ago. So we're starting to get a little bit higher. Once again, just some more views and some of the terrain. Some of the places were So if you walked to the side or fell 4 feet to the right, you'd fall off the side. Some of them were very, very safe. Look what the porters carried. Not me. They were Supermen. These are some of the paths. You see the yaks coming at you? They always said make sure you're on the inside trail, because see the yak's horns? Ouch. And they don't care. If you're near them, you might get pushed off the side of the mountain, and that's happened. So you just have to be careful. When those came, everybody said something, everybody got to the side, everything was fine. More pictures of the yaks, more of the trails. Some places for prayer, a monastery. This is inside the monastery. Oops, excuse me, I slid through there. 12,000 to 14,000 feet, day 5. Hotel that we stayed at, Hotel Himalayan. All the spelling is all different. Like I said, the views, every single minute you're looking at something that was just beautiful. And I recommend it to anybody that wanted to try it. I don't mind talking to anybody. It's not impossible. It's not like I did anything that dramatic. You just have to prepare properly. And that's me with a little bit of hair there and beard a little bit deeper there. This is right after breakfast, looking at Mount Everest in the background. At the top there's Mount Everest. Another place we ate. This was a kitchen. This is kind of like a McDonald's along the way. Look how they're cooking things. And it was actually pretty good for a while till you got sick of it. You ate a lot of starch and pasta. That doesn't look bad at all right there. And that's what one of the customs is, to eat with your fingers. Some people making pasta. This is where we kind of ate lunch. These were actually the best places, because you see the wood stove there? This is the only one place you had for a couple weeks. It's where you ate, where they had a wood stove or a dung stove, whichever you want to call it. People were kind of tired. That's the street sign. You know, they kind of write on rocks and say, go that way. This is kind of what you see along the hike. So you just need to be careful. It was kind of interesting just walking along and seeing that thing just from here to that door away from you, and you just kept walking. Some more beautiful pictures. This is a glacier lake. It's getting towards the top here. There's a few of these glacier lakes. I actually don't have time for this story, but I didn't make it there because I was sick one day. This is a view at night from one of the places we went. 14 to 16,000 the next day. Place we stayed. Someone got sick. I'll keep sliding on that one. Okay. Physically, it was tough on your body, sleeping 13 days, 14 days in these places and the conditions and things like that. Your immune system wore down over time. People had upper respiratory things, diarrhea, vomiting, headaches. You had some illnesses you had to battle through generally. This is one of our guides. This is a view of one of the villages from below, or from a view from above, the village below. This is a memorial to a lot of the climbers that went up Everest that didn't come back down. Next day, base camp. This is us. That's Brian and myself. I'm in the red, of course. And it's starting to get a little colder. I covered up really good here, and I didn't wear a big hat a lot of the time because I was warm other places. Just some more pictures. I never get tired looking at these pictures. I just like looking at them. This is some of the terrain we went through as well. Some of it was very rocky. I was talking about your ankles. Some of it was kind of flat. Some of it was high. Some of it was up, down. It was all different types. This is when it was a little colder. You see everybody a little more bundled up. We're getting closer to base camp here. A little colder. You can see the smiles are all fake right there because everybody's worn out, tired, and everybody's real tired there. We're not feeling good there. This hill right here is also one of the hardest hills to climb, and it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's 100 feet high, but it's a lot higher than that. This is a view from the top. It's like I said, these pictures don't do it any justice at all. We were so happy to get to the top of this hill, it wasn't even funny. This is kind of a view heading to base camp. And once again, just look at the mountains there. You're just walking in that, and you just kind of, and you got to make sure you don't fall off the side, because sometimes you could die if you fell off the side, but if you just paid attention, you were okay. So this is a picture at base camp. There's nobody at base camp now because of everybody that died last spring. I don't know, I was going to check on that last night, but I don't know whether anybody has climbed Mount Everest to the top since last April. I think it was April when they had all those people that got killed because they shut down the mountain. The Sherpas basically boycotted. So what normally a base camp is a bunch of tents trying to prepare to go to the top and having 1 out of 25 stay up there. Now there's no tents up there, so all there are is a bunch of flags there, and you go there and take pictures and then you walk back. So it's kind of interesting. It's not the normal procedure there. Okay, good, sounds good. There's a couple more pictures at base camp. And then we went to Kalapatar, which actually is higher than base camp. We went there for pictures. And we started at night. And it was cold. That was a very difficult part because we left about 4:30 in the morning without breakfast. And this was where it was really difficult. Getting from here to that door took a lot of effort. And you stopped. I literally stopped about every 5 to 10 feet and rested. That was the most difficult hiking part because you were at over 18,000 feet. This is the Khumbu ice fall. This is where a lot of people are buried. We did not go there. We stopped right before there. This is where when you see documentaries, that's what they're talking about right there. It's really beautiful, but it's very, very dangerous, and I did not want to go there. This is Mount Everest there from Kalapatar. These are just some more pictures of Everest from Kalapatar. You get a better view from Kalapatar than you do Mount Everest Base Camp of the view of Everest. These are just some more pictures here. And I will not get that high ever. It's too much. It's too much. It's very, very, very difficult. That's me, and that is a very generous picture of me compared to how I felt there. I felt really bad. When I was going up there, it was about 2.5 hours uphill. We left about 4:30, and my fingers and my toes, I really thought I was never going to come out black. And I borrowed some hand warmers from Michael to help my hands. And you couldn't go very fast, and you're conscious trying to move your fingers and your hands around. Turned out everything was okay, but that was a very difficult part for me. Some people had it more difficult. Some people had an easier time. It just kind of depended. Some more Everest right there. And what I am going to do right now is I'm going to end it right there for maybe 2-3 minutes of questions. 2 minutes of questions.
2 minutes.
2 minutes of questions. I'm going to leave this right there. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
Maybe you can stick around after.
I'll be glad to do that. It was 13 nights, 14 days, plus travel on each end, so I was gone for about 19 days. So that was kind of tough as well. Okay. Thank you.
I admire you. I don't think I could do it, but it's stunning photographs. I would love to try it. Congrats again to Mary Catherine and to Trey. Thank you for what you did. You were fun to watch, and you raised a great amount of money for a great cause, so thank you. It was wonderful to be there. Thank you to our speaker today. We are looking forward to asking you some questions after the meeting. Chuck, I'm kind of surprised to see you here today. Aren't you leaving soon for pets?
Early in the morning, sea flight's an hour, heading off to Greensboro.
All right, well, get prepared. It's education by fire hose, so we send our best wishes with you as Chuck gets trained up to be our incoming president. Thank you to all of our visitors and guests. Please come and join us again at any time. If you'll stand, we will be adjourned with the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?